Curtis West, Llew Jury, thanks for joining us today on the Vaxa Bureau Intelligence Optimised podcast. How are you, wonderful gentlemen?
I'm really well, thanks, Todd, and great to be here, and great to be on with Curtis as well.
Curtis, what's been kicking in the hood, mate?
Yeah, keeping it real.
I love it. I love it. Well, today we're going to get into a bit around AI, so let's just start with the basics. But through a strategic lens, So what's the biggest misconception in your minds, boys, about AI that you're seeing across industries that we work in?
I'll go first, Todd. For Advancer, I work, unlike Vaxa, I work in the sort of the SME space. So I work with mid-market companies, and I sort of see the coalface, if you like, of the Australian economy. 2.5 million Australian small businesses, and the sort of the mid-market is that $3 to $300 million type business. And the biggest misconception I see is that AI is a magic fix. It often gets sort of thrown around at either the board level or senior management and leadership team level, that AI or an AI agency or an AI expert like Curtis or myself can come in and, literally fix problems that are structural to the business or with people or with processes and things like that, and actually, turn things around in pretty much real time. That's the expectation. It's completely different to that. It's much more of a strategic capability, and across all the different sectors that we work in, we're seeing leaders framing it more as a project at the moment, a strategy, and then implementing the quick wins within their business.
And Curtis, what about you, mate? What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, I'd mirror pretty much everything that Lou said there. I think at the end of the day, right, AI, it's not magic, although it feels like magic sometimes. It's maths, really, right? And the same way that, when we went to do math in school, that familiarity with numbers isn't solved by having a calculator, and AI isn't solved by having tools that can do AI stuff, right? It's really about how we use it and understand it and implement it, but it still needs the right structure and the context and the data to be provided to that model to make it make sense for your business. And I think that's potentially where the disconnect is there's so much hype built around it, which in some respects is valid, but we're chasing, in a lot of cases, AI as more of a label, but without tying that back to the business outcomes, which is why we're in business, is to have outcomes. And so I think if you can't explain, I guess, the benefit of chasing AI in plain English, then you're probably not understanding, I guess, where AI is going to fit into your business quite yet. And that's where having those really valuable conversations with the likes of myself or Lou helps you shape that view of where does this actually slot in. Because it's not a label, it's not just a tool, it's really something much broader and potentially much more disruptive and exciting than just one tool.
Yeah, and it's got to be used the right way too. Like you said, it's not magic. And a couple of weeks ago, we hosted a roundtable with some pretty heavy hitting cats from Southeast Queensland, senior leaders and government, logistics, big logistics organisations, global logistics organisation, global health organisations, and some defence folk. And it was interesting. What did they say? What these key leaders? What did they think AI was? And the results in talking to them, where do you think they got it wrong?
I think it was a great roundtable, and it was really well attended. And yeah, thanks for hosting it. Both Vaxa and Advancer hosted, which was awesome. And I think we're going to be doing lots more of those as well, so people can register with Todd, and I would love to see more people. I think the big thematic from that was back to that misconception sort of stuff and where people are at, even with large global businesses like you mentioned, Todd. What they're doing is really doing the planning stage. They're doing the investigation stage, and they're not going boots and all in. A lot of them have been doing machine learning and building machine learning capabilities, and a lot now are looking at AI agents. So that's really not true AI or machine learning based AI. AI agents are more automation and workflow. So it's probably part of that misconception question before as well of what's happening in the market. And what we saw when we chatted for those hours with those CEOs was that it's taking a workflow and a process and then doing a test and learn moment, if you like, a project, a proof of concept, to actually try and create efficiencies within their organization. So that's either cost efficiencies or revenue efficiencies in terms of increased profitability, right through to human capital and marketing efficiencies. So everybody's in a sort of an optimization space at the moment, and there's not, I wouldn't say there's a huge amount of deep tech going on in the medium sort of businesses from a machine learning point of view. Of course, with Vaxa, you guys, partner with a lot of larger organizations, and Curtis can talk to this. There's, of course, all the work that he's doing on specific projects, but I just think we're at that point, and it's really everybody is doing test and learns and really sort of seeing where their organization fits with AI.
So, Llew and Curtis, at both of our organisations in Vaxa and Advance, we're focused on cutting through noise to drive outcomes. So what's a compelling real-world example where AI has eliminated friction, supported smarter decisions, or extended capabilities in the organisations or sectors that you're working in at the moment? Curtis, do you want to answer this one first?
Yeah, great question, Todd. I think there's obviously plenty of compelling examples where AI eliminates some friction, and but I also think one of the great applications of AI is doing things that were traditionally just absolutely impossible, usually for reasons of resourcing. So, for example, if you work in a high compliance environment running a very large call center, how do you have confidence that we are meeting all those compliance requirements? Historically, you might have someone reviewing transcripts, maybe they're sampling a couple throughout the day, but you don't have confidence that every single call is being compliant. Whereas with LLMs and then the rise of very good transcription AIs as well, we can pull out those transcripts in very high quality, pass that to a structured sort of decision support tool almost, and understand, did the agent make the right decision on behalf of the company, and look at that information at scale. Those sort of applications I think are really interesting because it's solving problems that were historically impossible, but it also serves as a great example of how we should use AI to think about brand new applications, if that makes sense. So, I think a lot of people potentially get stuck in the trap of, well, it's just a chatbot that I can talk to about my work and help me in that way. But what are the other applications beyond that very useful application? But what are the other applications beyond that really makes a difference in the business?
And for me, Todd, it's a really good question because there's so many different ways to answer it. But I wanted to draw sort of three things that I'm seeing right now in the AI space, and some are very simple. And so if you're a small business or you're someone that even in a large business, doesn't have a huge budget on this yet. Look, a lot of the things you might outsource can actually be done through tools like Perplexity AI and ChatGPT to an extent. But I think Perplexity and Claude, Anthropic's LLM, are probably the best ones from a research point of view. Google, of course, with Notebook LLM as well. But if you have a look at Perplexity, I've got a client at the moment that spends about 3 hours on a Monday morning collating some data around a couple of things. One is around loans and one is around some assets in the market. And they want to do a competitor scan. They've been sort of outsourcing this, and it normally takes about 3 hours to get that report through from their BPO, from their outsourced provider. Perplexity AI does it in about 6 seconds. So it scrapes the web, it shows the sources, and then it arranges it in a format and fashion that they can literally cut and paste and go to the meeting with all that information. So, things like these GPTs, these models that have been trained are getting better and better. Even since last month, there's a whole raft that have been released. So even simple tasks like that, using the right tools, I think people are starting to find those right tools. And I'd encourage you to check out Perplexity and Claude if you're doing some sort of research. The second one is customer service agents. We're now really seeing deep embedding of agents going in and actually, really taking the pressure off web chat teams and things like that. So in one of my clients, they have a big operation and they have a web chat team, and we're about to put in a big agent that will basically go through and really assist that team to answer questions about stock and inventory, and actually book meetings for the customer for the salespeople as well. And the third one I'm seeing, and I posted about this the other day, is a thing called vibe coding. And vibe coding is for small little apps like calculators or dashboards and things like that. It's not sort of Curtis's territory. If you want a big app and you want really awesome machine learning, go and see Curtis. But if you're time constrained and you're budget constrained, then check out tools like Cursor or Windsurf. But the one I've been using is called Lovable. And although it sounds like it's a dating website, Lovable is actually a really neat tool to build, calculators and things like that. So I've built a calculator for a small cap ASX climate tech company that's changing diesel trucks to electric trucks. And, that's actually going live. It's actually in final stages of testing. And the difference is that the CEO actually helped me build that. That literally took a number of hours, not weeks or days.
That's amazing, isn't it? It'll be so interesting to see what changes in organizations once they adopt AI.
Yeah, I think, Todd, a lot are adopting it right now and sort of, as I said, putting the toe in the water. I think 2025 is the transformation year. I think this year and from now, it's just accelerating. And you guys would be seeing this as well. Like it literally is it's the hottest topic for everybody from the governance level down. I think you need to be, really diving in to the AI, vibe within your organization. But also doing it in a risk and cautious way so that you don't have any of those problems that may happen with customer data or budgets and things like that.
Yeah, great point, Lou. And a lot of people can see these as barriers, right, to adopt AI, but because a lot of them aren't technical, they're structural, they're cultural, even political. So, what do you think's holding organisations back from moving from pilot to practice?
Look, I think the blockers aren't technical. I think it's about trust and structure. Many execs fear that, if they're the project champion, so to speak, of an AI project, and if something fails, then, that's a bit of career risk, we call it. Sometimes AI has been getting siloed into the wrong team, and I think you've got to really understand where, when the shift happens, where it actually needs to go within your organization. You then need to be sort of, the companies that are doing it at the moment and I'm working with are quite progressive. I've got CEO buy-in from every single one of them. And they often appoint someone in the organization to be the AI lead, so to speak. And they all co-own the roadmap. So I've got one company that basically there's 5 shareholders and also the owner. And all 6 of them are fully engaged in the process. They are the AI committee, so to speak. I don't like the word committee, but so they're basically from the board level down, driving the goal of workforce transformation and cost effectiveness and owning it. So I think that's a perfect example of where it's working. I just don't think you can bring in an AI consultant and go, right, go and sit in the corner over there and build me AI. It's not that sort of process.
Because you're working in, obviously, you and your team working in a lot of different organisations at the moment, but without naming names, are you able to maybe give some insights into some of the barriers that you might be seeing when talking to clients around AI and adoption?
Yeah, I'd firstly just echo everything Lou said. I think probably the single biggest question that we get asked is like, where does AI sit? Is it an IT function? Is it a HR function? Does each team have an AI team within it? I don't think there's any necessarily right answer. Obviously, there's a lot of complexities in any business about structure, but I think having a real good think about that, where you place that is important, because the issue you potentially face is fear and uncertainty from the teams that are affected by AI. Obviously, everyone has this concern around it replacing their job. And unfortunately, I think in some circumstances that will be the case. But by and large, AI is intended to extend and support decision-making and make things more efficient for humans so it can do things that we like going to the beach. But the structural concerns are very valid. Historically, I think where we've seen success is potentially having that smaller group, like a pilot group, to execute on some quick wins, typically eliminating some mundane work or just trying to tie those use cases back to value so we can get some buy-in from the rest of the organization, and also get them familiar with the tools the organization's using. But then from there, I think the concern becomes, well, how do you get out of this almost like a pilot graveyard? So you do all these pilot programs and they're sort of a nice little bite size, but how do you get to that real organizational transformation that AI can potentially unlock? I think that is obviously has a lot of factors that go into it, but I think it's often driven by not having a clear driver. And so when Llew said, speaking with a lot of CEOs who are driving from the top down, that's perfect, right? You get that clear vision from the start. But if it's an business unit within the organization trying to drive this, they are going to have a lot of challenges trying to communicate it because, for better or worse, some people just see IT as people you call to fix your laptop, and you're not going to get that buy-in the same way as if it's a whole organization strategy. So I think, in short, what's going to help here is having a real good think about that first step. Where do you place an AI team, and then what does that look like in the long term? Is it within each team? Was it an organization department, or is it part of IT? Those sorts of things. Focusing on those small wins to get some buy-in and really showing that across the organization and tying that back to outcomes. When Llew said earlier that it saves 5 or 6 hours in running a report, that's a perfect example. People understand that. Whereas if you say, well, I can talk to a bot, well, okay, but what value is that? There's very different sort of conversations to be had. And those sort of factors are how you overcome the barriers to AI adoption, which again are not technical problems.
Yeah, it's funny, we've seen recently with a large multinational company trying to build a solution for the last 18 months. And it seems that, the IT department is the sales prevention unit, where you've got operationally and financially where things that make sense that can, create efficiencies, improve profits, give it a better customer service. Yet the IT departments are obviously, and as they should be looking at risk. But how would you or what advice would you give to organisations where there seems to be a blocker or differing views on, what programs and what software and what technology can be implemented into an organisation and what can't or what shouldn't to get the change and the outcome desired from the operators?
Yeah, I think for me, I've had meetings just this week, and I think the first thing to do, Todd, is to bring everybody in around the table. So I went and saw a large law firm, for example, this week, and we had everybody there. We had the COO, the head of risk, one of the partners, and the head of IT, the CTO. And I think that's a really good place to start. I've learned over the years that, you've got to understand their complexities and what they're trying to achieve and what they've tried to do in the past as well. So a lot of IT managers, for example, have a lot of pressures in terms of everything from reformatting laptops right through to implementing the latest AI platform or SaaS or whatever it might be. Um, a good place to start is really sort of get a buy-in and understanding about what the roadmap's going to be and present it in a way that actually matches to their North Star, their corporate strategy, and the outcomes that the board want. And then you can use the board, if you like, as sort of the rationale to get the IT team to come along for the journey. So I think that's a very important one to sort of bring along. But I think it goes down to you have to go to tech with the IT guys. And so I often, walk into the meeting and get an understanding of what they've done in the past. And I have a bit of empathy for them because I have been in those around those guys for a long time. And, they've been trying to use often Microsoft Copilot, which hasn't been the best, quite frankly, in terms of being the latest and greatest large language model, and certainly not in the Outlook client. And so often they're sort of a bit jaded by paying $35 per month for Copilot, and they've had some feedback from their teams, and they're not quite ready to then jump all in. So what we do there is like Curtis said, we sort of, plan it out and we make sure there's no blockers technically. And we also, again, empathize and say, well, let's put this through a Microsoft platform. Let's include, Copilot in the future, but also there's some other tools that we might want to use as well. So I think it's important to really get an understanding of what these what their needs and their pains and gains are.
Yeah, and that's really important because, at VAXA we use a framework called Eliminate, Support and Extend, and that helps clients map AI against business problems, which is a really good place to start.
Yes.
And so I guess, where are you guys seeing, the strongest ROI or most meaningful shifts across those categories being Eliminate, Support, Extend?
Yeah, I think it's a great framework because it helps reframe that question beyond just what do we eliminate, which is often where we first go to, right? We want to eliminate the mundane work. We want AI to do automation stuff for us and all that. So I think like the ROI there is obviously very clear. You have fewer people doing stuff that's mundane. They can do higher value stuff. So I think everyone understands where you get that ROI. But when we extend into the support and extend pillars of that framework, that's where those really interesting conversations start to happen about a more strategic change within the organization. So within like the support, what we're trying to achieve there is like almost that second brain where AI is helping you support your decision making and think of more things than you would be able to do as a puny little human. It supports those better judgment calls. So that might be, for example, you say you're a salesperson, you might have an AI agent within Salesforce that gives you a rundown of the person who's calling you. So instantly you sort of understand where you're at and you look like you know what you're talking about. Obviously you probably should, but those sort of applications have really strong ROI as well. If we look at like extend, so the idea there is where we have models doing things that potentially weren't possible within your organization before. So whether that's a new product that you're selling or a new service you're offering, or even just the same sort of product that you're doing, but delivered in a much different way, AI can be really useful there. So things like mass customer service. So historically, you might call Qantas and wait on the phone for an hour, but they could potentially be extending that into real time. They pick up the moment you call them, right through to complete new business line or product lines that you could sell through your business. I think the key message, though, is that you need to start and work through that framework. You can't go straight to extend because you won't have the buy-in, you won't have the technology in place, you won't know where it sits in the organization. You need to step through, eliminate, support, and extend, and only then do you get to the transformation, the end state that we're all looking for here. So start with a real problem, small team, some tools that you already have access or can get access to very quickly, prove out that value, and expand from there.
Yeah, and Todd, for us, it's exactly the same. And that model that Curtis talks about is brilliant. I think what we do at Avancer is we do a lot of proof of concepts and low risk POCs, we call it. So sort of like pilot programs, and we often we talk about synthetic data at that stage. And I think your listeners would like to hear that you just don't go in and think things are going to be eliminated overnight. You do need to spend weeks and months testing and learning with synthetic data, which is sort of like fake data, if you like, to make sure that the concept and that you're building and testing is actually going to work in the organization. But most importantly, it's going to be adopted by the organization. So there's actually a change management piece as well to the HR side to actually get people to use it. Because if you and the CEO and the AI team go in and do this amazing mapping and, looking at all these pains and gains and process efficiencies that you can create, you then go and build it and deploy it and it doesn't get used. That's not good for the organization, from a number of levels, as we know. So it's really important to go small test and learn projects, that do eliminate through that roadmap. And then, as Curtis said, you've got to support them. This is not just bring the AI guys in, build something and see you later. It's much more of a long-term relationship from a support level as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'll turn our attention to the defence as an example, and not just the ADF, but every defence organisation in the region and their procurement uh, capabilities and desires and needs. We're seeing organisations, with less and less money to spend, less and less government money to spend, but more and more tech available to help them, I guess, achieve their outcomes and their goals. More and more, software, more AI options. DSEI Japan's on at the moment, Defence and Security and Equipment Industry. They get together, biannually over in Japan, and what I'm seeing is the number of people that are displaying. Like, you used to get people displaying, here's a gun, here's a rocket, here's a tank, here's a ship. It's all technology these days, and it's all based around how can AI help deliver the outcome, being whether it's a force multiplier or whether it's training or whatever it might be. But how would would you say, like, organisations in defence, should they use this particular framework, or is it just for small to medium businesses?
I think regardless of the size of the organization, you still have the same challenges. But small business, large business, they have people problems, they have structure problems, they have, you know, if nothing else, they need to train people how to use these tools, right? I think the applications are potentially very different in terms of what you would eliminate, support, and extend between those organizations. But I think, 100% it's applicable across any size organization.
Yeah, and totally agree. And for sectors like defense, Todd and Curtis, and also health as well, you need to invest in AI governance frameworks, and also trusted data infrastructure as well. So there's a lot going on in that world, with the leadership that are investing right now. It's pretty quiet about that because you don't see, when you go to those shows in Japan, Todd, you don't see, a lot of booths of, AI governance framework, providers. If you're sexy, is it? It's not very sexy, but it is so important. And if you go to the AICD here in Australia, the Australian Institute of Company Directors, they've actually released an AI roadmap and AI governance guideline platform that anybody can go and have a look at. So check that out on the AICD website. And because it's so critical that from the top down, especially around defense and health, which are often the two, the most vulnerable to, especially with health, if you get it wrong, there's major ramifications with the healthcare system, and also defense, so important for the sovereignty of a place like Australia and our allies. But you got to really invest in that.
Yeah, right. And so, gents, finally, from what you're seeing on the ground, what should leaders in critical sectors like infrastructure, health, defence, national security be doing right now to stay ahead of the AI curve? Llew?
Yeah, I think I just want to repeat that governance piece. I mean, I was at an AI event yesterday, and there's a guy there called James Gauchi who basically does AI governance with a platform called Effie. And James is world renowned now, or definitely Australia renowned in terms of AI governance and frameworks, and he loves it, and he's really, really good at it. So engaging people like that to actually bring them in, or we can bring them in, and basically make sure that you do the practical steps within your governance framework. So yeah, top down. The second one is definitely proof of concepts and experimentation. The test and learn environment is ripe, and it's ready. Everybody is actually doing a lot of test and learn. So if you're not in your organization, I would strongly encourage you to do that.
And Curtis, what about you, mate? What's the next smart move for these leaders?
Yeah, I think as well, we were doing AI back when it was called machine learning, right? So that's still a very big application for a lot of organizations. But whether it's your large language model or your traditional machine learning with predictions and fraud detection, those sorts of applications, both still require really good data, like Llew said. It's whether that's numerical data or your unstructured data like invoices and that sort of stuff. Getting that in shape is a really key prerequisite to having a really successful and broadly scalable AI program. 100% there's some quick wins you can have with some relatively messy data still around the organization. That's fine. But that broad governance piece is huge. I think as well, the conversations you'll be having internally about AI is about how do we make it part of the fabric? Sort of like how cybersecurity isn't just a cybersecurity team. It's everyone's responsibility to execute on. Same way the finance team is not just a team. Everyone's impacted by what happens in finance and should understand what happens in that team. It's a capability at the end of the day. It's not a project, and you need to build your playbooks and your training and your governance to support that long term. So I think in terms of the next smart move, it really would be starting with that audit of where you're at in terms of what data you have, where there's low hanging fruit are in terms of proof of concepts, but then also with that long-term view of making it part of the fabric of the organization.
And I just want to reiterate that Curtis has actually, taught me over the number of years about how important data is, and having your structured data is the most important thing. I with one of my clients, just quickly, a guy called Paul, he is in the finance team, and he's been building for 3 years an SQL database in Microsoft that pulls all these different requirements in, and it's one of the best examples of structured data. So he's my go-to for all my early proof of concepts because he's ready to go literally within weeks. And so I can't reiterate that enough. If you're going to roll it out or bring in consultants like us to actually assist with it, structured data in, not just sort of CSV files or old Access databases or old Excel files, lying around on desktops. Really get your data play ready, and then you can interrogate that really quickly.
That's wonderful. Llew and Curtis, in your opinion, how can businesses measure ROI or return on investment for an AI program?
I think that's a really important one. There's two ways. One is I've got an ROI calculator up on my Advancer website under my AI strategy page, and you can actually punch that in to work out, literally down to the hourly rate or the how much money you're going to save. But there's a bit of a formula that I've been working with some clients on recently that basically allows me to price up, for example, an AI agent. So it's things like the number of hours per day by the wages that are charged by, say, a bookkeeper or something like that, times by 20 working days a month. And how much percentage of savings will the AI that I'm putting in actually achieve against that? So if we save 90% of time on a task of chasing money or something like that, what is the ROI on that? And it actually is very easy to calculate. So I think producing client ROI is really important, and it's important because it allows us to really quickly measure the effectiveness of the AI program that you're rolling out. So coming up with your own ROI, return on investment processes and policies and calculations, I think is really important. But interested to hear what you guys at VAXA are doing.
Yeah, that's a super important step in any process, right? If you're going to implement any program, be it AIs, and how depending who's also the sponsor or the lead in the program, you have to answer to someone about what the ROI is. It's not just about answering to someone either; it's about being able to prove it so that you can so that you can comfortably roll out a program. One of the biggest misconceptions I think as well at the moment from people are, well, am I going to lose my job? Well, no, you're not. You're not going to lose your job if you embrace AI, and everyone's got to change, right? Everyone's got to be adaptable.
Correct.
But I think once people start seeing the benefit, and when you talk about the return on investment on implementing the program and continuing to to develop that particular program, like I think Curtis said earlier, everyone's going to be more happy because you're going to be at the beach a lot more often. You're still going to be getting the same results from the organisation or for the organisation. Clients are going to be happy. Happy days. Everyone wins. Llew, Jury, Curtis West, thank you so much for your time today, gents. Your insights are always invaluable. We look forward to catching up again in the near future.
Thank you very much. Yeah, been awesome.